Good morning, everybody. Test, test, test. Check 1, 2. Check 1, 2. So, you guys are probably wondering what's your boy got going on over here? Well, I'm glad you asked because I'm going to show you. There's a couple things. We'll grab this. This is some of the equipment that I use. So, right there, you can see I've got my little MacBook, right? Right here, I've got a ThinkPad because sometimes you got to have, and it's up here behind the plants, you can't really see it. I've got a Toshiba external hard drive, and down here, if you'll allow me, I've got some of my old burner phones from Mexico. I never throw phones away. And you guys don't know it. You don't know it, but my wife, she's got my she's got my I have a computer that I bought at a pawn shop. You got to be careful when you're buying used computers. I have a computer that I bought at a pawn shop in Chaska, Minnesota. Let me just make sure this is focused in again real good because I want to make sure I don't screw this whole thing up, and it is. Okay. Yeah. So, in any event, this isn't a burner. That's my normal one. The rest of those are old phones. And I keep them. I never throw them away. And the point of today's video, right here, here's another one. You can see Telcel, which is like one of the main Mexican companies. I never throw these phones away. A lot of times I'll do a factory reset on them. Without jumping around too much, when you start creating content, one of the problems that you're going to run into, storage is one of the issues, but is you're going to record a lot of stuff, and a lot of the footage that you use isn't even going to be something that you upload. Like last night I was uploading something, and then I decided, maybe I shouldn't do that because there's legalities. You don't want to be harassing anyone or be unethical. But today's video is about the dark web and setting traps for unethical journalists in quotation marks. I don't know if people like my videos. We can just call this Tuesday morning with Dave, coffee with Tuesday, Taco Tuesday with Dave, except I'm not making tacos. I don't know if people are going to like my videos. They might be critical of me. I'm getting a little older, missing my tooth. Few things, I need to get a 3D scanner so I can fix it. I've got the printer upstairs. I can make my own grill. In fact, I've spoken about that before. But today's video is about catching unscrupulous journalists and how to connect to the dark web for legal purposes only. And to be super honest, there's so much when you connect to the dark web, and I've done it before several times, always for legal purposes or curiosity, which is it's legal to be curious as long as you're not looking into something that is inherently illegal, which I completely oppose. But when you go onto the dark web, you're exposing yourself to people that are better at manipulating computers than the ether world better than you are. So you need to go from the outset. For those, the best way to describe it, the dark web, I think, would be to describe it, to liken it to a fish tank. I don't know if you guys, I've got pictures of my tank. Got a big plexiglass tank. And fish in general are extremely predatory creatures. They are barbaric. And my wife found that out. We had a red-tailed cat, and we came home one day, and one of the cichlids, the large cichlids, they get big, had eaten the excuse me, it was the other way around. The red-tailed cat had eaten one of the cichlids. And it's funny because the cichlids are usually a very aggressive fish. But so are catfish. And this catfish, my wife came home and the catfish had the cichlid. He couldn't swallow the whole thing because it was a big cichlid. But he had them halfway in his mouth and he was eating them. The dark web's kind of like that. The dark web is a place where there are predators, and they are predators that are stronger than you. And if you're not very careful, you'll run into one. And they'll absolutely ruin your day. Well, what's this got to do with unscrupulous journalists, Dave? Well, I'm glad you asked. Maybe you enjoy my videos, maybe you don't. Getting back to that. Not handsome, but I'm creating content and I'm doing it for the right reason. I don't need the money. So you never throw away your phones, and if you are going to get rid of them, you do a factory reset on them. And so those are just a few different phones. And the laptop that I would normally use to do this, my wife has hidden away right now. It's the one I got in the pawn shop. My normal phone. And some of the components that you're going to use, if you were so inclined, you can go to Chat GPT or anything like that, and it would tell you how to do it. I'm not going to give the exact step-by-step instructions on how to do it, but you would want something like that at a minimum, kitted with Ubuntu, so Linux system with Ubuntu, right? You would use a Tor browser. You would not want to do it off of your own wire, your own internet at home. You don't want a camera or a microphone hooked to it. You only want to do it for legal purposes. And you would want to use, I'm not sure if I said it, but if I didn't, I'm going to say it again because it's a very critical step, a VPN from a privacy-friendly country. So when you go and get a VPN, everyone thinks they're all high-tech because they got a VPN. A privacy-friendly country, not to facilitate illegal activity, but definitely to facilitate privacy, particularly your privacy, and not even necessarily from the government, but from people that will actually do you real harm, financial harm, identity theft. There's just so many different ways that it can be manipulated to get you in a lot of trouble, which is why I'm not going to break down exactly how to do it. But the reason why this is important is because if you want to catch a great big stinky rat, and what do you mean by stinky rat? Well, I'm talking about journalists that are not authentic, that put out a lot of stuff. And I've thought about, I made a post yesterday detailing what I'm doing in order to let people know what I'm doing beforehand, antemano in Spanish, or do этого in Russian, beforehand, so it's clear that I'm not up to any illegal activity. But because cartels are an illegal subject, and because journalists like to pretend, I haven't seen them really validate what they're putting out, like to pretend that what they're saying is true and that it's accurate, it's important that you go through some of these steps. Full disclosure, I'm not showing you the exact equipment I'm going to do this on because there's inherent security risk with that, to where you can manipulate different systems different ways. But this is a basic breakdown about how you would go about accessing the dark web. What do you need to access the dark web for? Well, in order to get these journalists to set the bait, give them a great big chunk of stinky Roquefort rat cheese, or blue cheese. I love Roquefort cheese. I shouldn't use that one, but in order to get them a piece of bait that they're going to be interested in, you have to make it look authentic. Not unlike their YouTube programs. I'm going to leave all the names out of it too, so I don't get in any hot water with libel or slander lawsuits. I'm just going to say that if people are not putting out authentic news, then they ought to be challenged on it. And I know what's authentic because I've worked in it. the same as anyone that's worked in law enforcement or whatever in the United States would know immediately whether something was authentic or if it just doesn't, if it doesn't pass the smell test. So that's kind of what I've got going on here, is hooking up a computer to the dark web remotely with a VPN and then accessing that VPN and the hard drive remotely through another device, and then setting up a website to where people, these journalists, can access it, or setting up an email account. And you can figure out how to do all of this yourself on ChatGPT or OpenAI or any of that stuff if you really want to. I'm just going to warn you ahead of time. I would be very careful about doing it. And I would only do it for legal purposes. But then you get these journalists to communicate with you, because when you communicate with these journalists directly, they will not respond to you, which is suspicious in and of itself. And I know because I've got several pictures of email correspondence that I've had, that I've shot out from everyone to, I'm going to leave the names out of it, but you know the regular list of names that I talk about, including American government, that I've asked them directly, their public information office, and special forces communication or points of contact that are open to anybody on the internet through their .mil websites. So I've been very open and forthright with what my interests are. And in fact, I'm going to close that. There's something I don't want that coming back up and having you guys see that. I've been very open with what I'm doing. So the reason why I'm putting this out there is because I want these journalists to know that, just think of me like a great big STD that's waiting to catch you and wrap you up in my stuff. I thought about not saying anything and then just trying to catch these people, but really the intent of all of this is to make sure that we get a better class of news, that people substantiate what they're doing. You'll have the whole usual cast of characters putting out video after video after video with American experts that have never stepped foot in Mexico, or other people that are Mexican experts that don't really live in Mexico, don't have Mexican citizenship, don't even have a work visa. And this is all factual stuff. Or other so-called Mexicans that don't even have an accent when they're speaking English, which is completely off the chart weird if you've been to Mexico and spent any time there. Mexicans have an accent when they're speaking English the same way I have an accent when I'm speaking Spanish. And there are accent reduction classes, but it's not the same as a native speaker. So there are things that are suspect. And then this individual, the last one I'm talking about, coming back to the United States, fleeing Mexico, not coming back, fleeing Mexico, according to him, and then going back and doing podcast interviews with people that claim to be cartel drug dealers with cartel Sicario hitman friends in the same place where he used to work. Not the smartest thing to do, man. So, I'm right to call all this stuff out. And when you're making these videos and you are kind of self-conscious, I don't look like I looked when I got out of basic training, and I don't look like I look, and I'm still in decent shape. I mean, I get physically active, but when you put your face out there in front of something, people are going to pick it apart. And they can pick apart what age is doing to me. I don't mind that, because age is going to conquer all of us. You can slow it down, and indeed I do try. I stay active with judo. I stay active with paddleboarding, surfing, skateboarding, running, lift a little weights. My joints, I used to power lift. I used to be really very strong when I was younger. So my joints aren't as good as they were. And my nickname was Bull because I would lift so much. But there's a price that your body's going to pay. When you're making these videos, you're putting your face out there and you're looking at it and you can see. Let me make sure this is still recording. It is. I'm not recording this on the other one like I usually do. You're putting yourself out there and people are going to pick it apart. And I do it too. I pick people apart. In fact, I just was right this second. So Be that as it may, I'm okay with being picked apart because I don't do anything dishonest. I have integrity. Here's a bit of integrity for you. This is just Dave being real. I work 2 jobs. They're jobs where I need a lanyard and stuff like that. There's another one, and I'm going to get rid of one of the jobs. And I'm going to go use my second job as a gas station attendant at night. Yeah, real stuff. Going to make a lot less money, but it's going to facilitate my being able to study and pass the bar exam, which is my ultimate goal, because I want to help people through the course of law, and law is what controls everything. Law and religion. If you can get into one of those 2 things, you're going to have a lot of power. And I want to use this power to help people. So that's kind of what I've got going on. Real stuff. I'm not $1 million podcaster like Tommy G or other people. I'm doing this because I want people to tell us the truth. And so I was thinking about it, and I posted it. I know this is a roundabout way, but I posted this to let people know that I'm not involved in anything illegal, and then I'm doing this in order to set a trap. And then I'm putting this out there ahead of time to let people know that I'm doing this and setting this all up. You can see some of the equipment that I've got. I've got more equipment that's not on here, like the laptop I was telling you about. My wife's got it somewhere. This laptop is kitted up with Ubuntu, right? Which is a Linux operating system. I don't know how many of you are computer nerds, but there's enough computer nerds out there that can validate what I'm saying, or you can get into your artificial intelligence thing and look it all up. I'm putting this out there because I want these so-called pseudo journalists to know that I'm out here and I'm actually looking for you. Each one of you guys that I just brought up, I want you to know that I take my personal time. I'm very disciplined. I only sleep about 4 hours a day, right? Every day, same as Donald and same as a lot of other people that were in the military or whatever. 4 hours a day, I don't need a lot of sleep. Sometimes if my wife is off, I might sleep 6, but I mean, I'm not going to spend all day sleeping in bed. So I want you to know that I'm out here. And as far as like, well, I told some of my coworkers what I got going on too. And they're like, whoa, man, that sounds kind of dangerous. Yeah, you know, it is kind of dangerous because you're screwing around with things. You know what else is dangerous? Having an international war where we're invading a sovereign country, going and dealing with cartel, and then you have a war that you're fighting at home. That's dangerous too. So, you know, when I put on that uniform, I accepted the danger, and then I accept it now. And I'm not flaunting or rubbing my nose in the cartel in a way that would be disrespectful, because they are an incredibly pervasive, intense, determined enemy that are trained, and they are trained, make no doubt about it. They have the money to purchase any level of talent in any discipline, computers, combat that you want, and they have them. You better believe it. I'm not thumbing my nose at them in a way that would be disrespectful. In fact, they are very much to be respected. You better bet that the government respects them. They're not down there just kicking in doors haphazardly. They very much respect them because they'll make you pay. I'm not being a cheerleader saying that. To be honest, there's a lot of bad that the government does too, so I'm not going to sit here and split hairs about the correctness of who does what. I am going to say that I am fervently against children being given drugs. I'm fervently against, here's something that's real. I lived in Tijuana where one of these guys says that he lives. I lived in a place called Playas de Tijuana, Costa Azul. It's beautiful. It's just north of Rosarito Beach, but it's not in Rosarito Beach. It's in Tijuana. And I would go there, and there's a thing called Zona de Tolerancia in Tijuana. And I'm going to make sure this thing's still recording because it's kind of interesting. It is. It's recording. So anyways, one day I was I think it even may have been one of these phones. I was uploading some stuff to my Facebook account from Tijuana. They have an internet cafe there in Zona de Tolerancia. Just to stay on point, we're talking about things that I am fervently against. I'm fervently against Americans going to Tijuana, dipping their puds, treating women like that. And I'm not really, I don't like the term human trafficking because it's something that they use to sensationalize something. But, and I'm going to say right now that the media portrays things a certain way. I do a lot of my wife's math. And they'll do stuff like they'll have like feminicide or femicides where women are killed, and they don't want to compare that. INEGI, the Instituto Nacional de Estadística in Mexico, has all this data. The National Institute of Statistics and Geography, INEGI, they have all this data points, and if you compare the amount of men, bear with me, I don't want to make this uninteresting. If you compare the amount of men in Mexico that are murdered against the amount of women that are murdered, it's night and day. It's about 20,000 men per year, maybe more. That's not even directly cartel related. That's just other stuff versus women. But because a lot of times journalists will want to point out femicidio in Spanish, they'll talk about the percentage increase of women killed from one year to the next, and they'll be like, well, there was a 5% increase. Really, it was 2 women. But when you say 5%, it makes it seem like it's a lot more impactful than it would be otherwise. And so a lot of times journalists will misconstrue some of their stuff. And I'm not going to slam journalists. They're very brave, but I am going to say that the way that they portray things sometimes, and I've learned this being married to my wife, the way that they portray things sometimes is not the way that I would always portray something, because when you're doing statistics in school, for example, you have a thing called outliers. So you'll have like a data set, which is like just imagine, if you will, shooting arrows at a target, and say that you shoot 30 arrows, and most of them are within the 10 ring or less. 10 rings, the furthermost outer ring, the outermost ring rather. And then going in, you get down to the center. But say you have 2 of them that are outside all of those rings. These would be your outliers, whereas the most of them were inside the 10 ring, the 9, the 8, etc., so on and so forth. So a lot of times you would discard your outliers, but in journalism, they'll take those outliers. They'll present it as a percentage increase or whatever, like 10% or whatever. Really, well, with 30 arrows, it would be 10% would be 3. You have almost 10% of your arrows. 10% of the arrows landed outside, whatever. And so you can easily misconstrue something. Getting back to the point of today's video and the whole zona de tolerancia thing, I'm completely against human trafficking in the terms of prostitution that is conducted by women that legitimately do not have a better way to life, a better way to feed themselves. Are some of them trafficked? I wouldn't know personally, because in Mexico, when they have zonas de tolerancia, there's something at a federal level with the federal state or with the federal ministry agents set up a particular place where certain behavior is allowed, vices, if you will. And we generally stay out of that. So I'm not going to get into whether or not I have any immediate knowledge of business that's going on in zonas that are intolerant zones. I don't. Let's say that outright. I do have immediate knowledge of what I've seen in tolerant zones as far as women being on the street, standing there for hours, selling their bodies because they don't have a better way to make a living. And I'm against that too. So against drug dealing to kill children. I'm against women having to sell themselves to various men or otherwise in order to be able to have something to eat. I'm completely and vehemently against that, to the point where I would actually lose my life fighting against it because it's wrong, right? So that's where your boy Dave's at. If you're a full-grown person and you willingly enter into something, be it prostitution or being the customer of a prostitute or consuming alcohol or drugs as an adult, I have nothing to say about that, because I don't think that we should be legislating vice. amongst consenting adults, because then you lose the sense of freedom. I'm very big into freedom. Getting back to what I want to do with this, I am looking to, and all you pseudo journalists out here, this is the part that you want to pay attention to. I'm going to use my abilities to set up a mouse trap, if you will, a rat trap, rata ensalada, ensalada de rata, rat salad, for you posers out there. This goes to all you big companies too, because I'm coming for you. I'm looking for you. I'm going to make sure I'm going to keep you honest. And I know that a lot of you guys are the face to your own programs and you have other talented people that work for you, but I want you to know that I'm here doing this. I'm looking to send you emails and cartel contacts, and then I'm looking to document this. I am looking to film you from afar, right? From an elevated position outside of a place that has cell phone coverage, which would be typical of a lot of places that have cartel activity going on. Using an elevation for how many miles that I can see by multiplying 1.225, right, times the square root of your elevation to give the quantity of miles that you'll be able to see away, to make sure that you're not tailed out in the middle of nowhere. I don't have my phone and I'm not pausing this. I'm not looking any of that up. I know it all off the top of my head. And I want to make sure that you're alone, that you come out, and then I want to film it. And then I want to let you have your, I want pretend a product so you can see, right, what you're looking at. Hire a couple extras, make sure everything goes off, and let you guys record your BS cartel interaction operation thing. Like some cartel is actually going to let you see their illegal operations they set up in a foreign country. This chick set up in a foreign country and put to risk their revenue generating plan and operation that they took years to put into place 2 countries away from their home base, because some chick with a nice smile and a set of eyes wagged her tail at them and decided, hey, I'll take things that didn't happen for $1,000, Alex. So let you come and film your little BS episode. Film it secretly from afar, using including game cameras or trail cameras, using a drone, right? Which I've got, someone's seen it. In fact, I've got printed circuit boards here that you can make. You can make your own drones, keep them under half a pound. Always do everything legally with the FCC. You don't want to get in any trouble with that. But there's technology that you can use to catch these people. Let them upload these stupid videos to their YouTube channel, and then come in a week later, bam, and torpedo them with the footage that shows them misrepresenting something that's cartel, and hammering them so they can just shut the hell up and scurry away with their tails between their legs. So that's kind of like what I got going on. I made this same exact video yesterday before judo and was uploading it, and then decided to take it down. It had pictures of all the people that I've emailed and stuff like that. Scott Babb and others with Libre knife fighting. I've been doing this for a while. So if you don't like the way I look, my clothes, whatever, I got some dirt on me from my motorcycle. I'm sorry. Sorry I'm not in a professional studio. But one thing that you're not going to take away from me is the amount of time and years that myself and my brothers have jumped in and out of our trucks confronting this enemy that you pretend to have firsthand knowledge of, or take away the credit from hardworking Mexican journalists, right, that confront this every day and live amongst a war zone while you're there on a tourist visa in a resort town and you've never even been out of the city at night, which is where most of the stuff goes on. You've never looked into a cooler full of severed heads, and you act like you're, I don't know, international persona of fame because you were doing some pot running from Oregon to New York or whatever, which is something that happens every day. I'm sure it's happening right now. So yeah, I'm calling you guys out on your stuff, and I'm going to continue to do it. I have friends at work that have agreed to do this with me. But right now, today is about accessing the dark web, setting up a pretend website, establishing contact with these journalists that won't email you back, but if you give them a stinky piece of cheese, they'll get on that. And the reason why, because this is an important part, I'm going to wrap the video up with this. It is important to do this and to make yourself known to these rat journalists, because if they refuse to cover it, and if you do reach out to them and you do give them something that is appealing enough, alluring enough, if you will, that they don't cover it, then also you can tell and use that as a sign of their disingenuous or disingenuity. They're being disingenuous and they're not authentic because they're not chasing what could be potentially a real story. So we're using all this and accumulating evidence. You know, you can use, there's a thing called a bell curve, and a bell curve is going to contain different data sets. And along enough, there's also a thing called statistical process control, where you want to get a CPK of 1 or less to where your process is in control. And this is based on millions and millions and millions of iterations of something, to where this thing works flawlessly. And you measure this, and on a long enough timeline, it will bear out. The data will bear whatever it's going to bear. If these journalists are being truthful, we're going to know, hey, you know what? Kudos to you. You're doing your job. If you're being untruthful, sooner or later, we're going to find that out too, which is why it's always important to be truthful in everything that you say. Sooner or later, people are going to find you out. Find out I don't have a tooth, I don't give a damn. Find out I'm being disingenuous from my own home or whatever and not being authentic to you. There's a problem with that. And everyone needs to be held to the same standards. Principles do not bend for anybody. So that's enough out of me. Thanks for having coffee with Dave this morning. I'm going to upload this, and then I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day, yeah? Cheers, man.